listening to Withstood, produced by Crossbrand. Welcome back to the Withstood podcast. My name is Cody Mahaffey. I'm the music guy here at Crossbrand. This week, Mike Morrow is out, a little under the weather, so we have asked Micah Morrow, our youth pastor here at Crossbrand, and Keona Tamez, our children's director, to interview Brad Glenn. Brad Glenn is a bootmaker in Lubbock, Texas, and has an incredible story that we wanted to share with you, so we're going to jump right in. Hope you enjoy it.
All right, so Brad, this podcast is about being withstood and withstood through Jesus Christ and how he has shown up in your life. And personally, you know, we've known each other. I think I met you when I was probably 15, 16.
Yeah, probably so.
And to be honest, you were a wild man.
That's an understatement, I think.
Yes. To me, you were a wild man, but it was probably a lot more than that.
Drank hot Budweisers and smoked cigarettes pretty much all day long.
Yes. So we just kind of want to know what is your story?
Man, Micah, my story is pretty wild. I tried everything and anything before I tried Jesus. It's kind of how it was. Drank at an early age, started doing drugs at 21, found myself in and out of jails, pretty much was at the lowest part of my life, and was in and out of jail since I was about 21, started drinking at a very young age, and grew up knowing who Jesus was, but I had to go out and see what the world was. And, you know, I go back to that whole scripture. It's in Psalms, it's taste and see that the Lord is good. And, you know, and when I finally realized that, when I finally got a true taste of what he was like, that's when everything kind of come to an end. And it was, it's been a whole different ride. But, you know, I got thrown in jail and then got out and got saved and went on the walk to Emmaus and did really, really good for 7 years and 300 days. Then I found myself with a pocket full of cash and doing really good in life, and was at the wrong place at the wrong time. And, man, the party life was on again, you know, and the next thing you know is I was back into the dope and back into the alcohol. I'll never forget, I was drinking pretty heavily, and a good friend of mine, Colin Lane, said, "When you going to start doing drugs again?" And I thought, man, I ain't going back to that life. And you know, it's like they all say, one thing leads to another. And next thing you know, I was back into the dope. Man, I lost pretty much everything I had. September the 26th of 2014. Man, I'd had enough. No, that was the day that I got arrested. Excuse me. September the 1st of 2014 was the day I put a pistol in my mouth, and I was over life. And man, it was pretty. I was at my lowest point, and I just started pulling the trigger, and the gun didn't go off in my hand, and you know, then a little bit later, the gun went off in a good friend's hand of mine, and he said, "God's got this." And I said, "Man, I don't know how God's got this." I said, "Dude, I'm so screwed up on everything." And I said, I'm over it. And then I went on about my business. 26 days later, I ended up in a federal holding cell. The county judge told me, he said, "God's got this." And I looked at him and I said, "How the hell does God got this, man? All I really want to do is get out of here so I can go on about my business. I'm done, you know." And I had the opportunity to go to Teen Challenge, and man, I've been on top of the world. I've been at the bottom of the world, and I've been all around it. You know what I'm saying? It's the best high that I've ever had was on Jesus. You know what I'm saying? And it's just been so good. There's been so many great things happen, so many cool things since I just truly submitted my life to Christ. And just seeing where he's taken me, where he's taken my family, the great things that's going on there. I mean, I see God move every day, and that's the best thing ever. You know, it's just I've seen so much God do so much work here in the last 4 or 5 months that it's just man, I can't get enough. You know, and that's where that's at.
So, Brad, I've never heard your story before. This is the first time that I've been able to meet you, so that's an awesome story. But it kind of sounds like, when you were talking about that day that, God didn't let anything happen to you because he wanted to protect you, because he obviously had a purpose and a plan for you. And I think we can see that now that he's using you through different ways. Can you talk about Teen Challenge a little bit and what that was and what was your part in that?
Man, so it's kind of cool how all this happens, because I was sitting in county jail, and Ron Beatonbow which is a big supporter of Teen Challenge, and my lawyer knew each other, and my sister-in-law was interviewing with Ron Beatonbow at the time, and he said he wanted to talk about their families. And so they started, and Ron went to church with my mom and dad, so he kind of knew who we were, but he didn't really know who I was. And my sister-in-law said, well, you got any brother and sister-in-laws? And she's like, yeah, I got one. But he's fixing to go to the penitentiary. He's screwed up on drugs, and he's like, that's the one I want to talk about. And come to find out, everything just kind of, it's God's got a sense of humor.
Yeah.
And I sit back and I look, and he probably just laughs because he thinks, yeah, man, there's a whole lot easier ways of doing things, and there really is, but I'm not that hard-headed. I really ain't. I mean, whatever Big Daddy says probably ain't the whole truth. So sometimes we don't even listen to him, but he ain't here to defend himself, so we're gonna talk about him today.
By Big Daddy, you mean Mike Morrow, right?
Yes, Mike Morrow is where that's at. So it was one of them deals. God knew the day that I got arrested how this whole deal was going to line up, and instead of me going to the penitentiary, I had a chance to go to Teen Challenge, and man, I had no clue what this place was. I was like, you know what? I've tried everything else in life. I've tried AA, NA, rehabs, this. I can't tell you how many times I've been in and out of rehabs. I lost count at like probably 7, and some of them was mandatory. Some of them, the state of Texas said you got to go get sober, and some of them I walked in to get my parents off my butt, and I never did it for me. You know what I'm saying? And man, I was sitting in that jail cell, and I'd been praying when I was screwed up on dope. And that's just like, God save me, but I'm really not ready to sober up, but just save my life, because I don't, I'm screwed up, but I want to change, but I don't want to change. You know what I'm saying? And then finally they had to lock me up to get the change. And so I really didn't know what I was expecting going into Teen Challenge. I just knew that I had tried everything else in life, and I was so screwed up that I needed a new life. And when they was telling me about Teen Challenge, and it's kind of funny because Steve Friskup, I was in Bailey County Jail probably 12 years prior to being in Randall County, and Steve come in there and was like, hey man, I got an opportunity for you. And I didn't want to hear it, so I just went and did my time. Mm-hmm. And got out and stayed sober for a little bit, and then it kept coming back around, Teen Challenge, and so I went and I was just like, you know what, I've tried everything else, let's try this. I got out of jail, Dad come by and picked me up and was taking me down there. And granted, they say Jesus lived was in the wilderness for 40 days and 40 nights. Well, I knew I had 15 months, and when we went to Midland, Texas, I'm thinking, Lord, I'm fishing to endure what Jesus just went through, because there ain't nothing out here except a desert. And they pull off onto this old county road, and we go down there a good ways, and I'm like, oh, Lord, what kind of plantation have we got into here? And it just, the very first thing, when you pull up to the gate, it says sin stops here. And jokingly, I told Dad, I said, well, you can't take me into there because I can't go in there because I'm just ate up with it. You know what I'm saying? And so it was a joke, but at the same time, it was, I really didn't know what I was getting into, because I was thinking, all right, this is teen, and I'm an adult. I'm about almost 33 years old and still acting like a teen, still acting like a child, more or less. But did it really? I didn't know what I was going off into, but I knew it was going to be something good, because it kept occurring in my life every time I would get locked up, and it was like I was at that point where I didn't want to go back down and have to do my time, because it wasn't doing me no good. Mm-hmm. And so I walked into this place, and when I walked into this place, Brother David Day was the director at the time, and he just gave me a big old hug, and he said, "I love you." And I said, "You don't even know me." Mm. And he says, "I know I don't, but God does." Mm. And he's like, I'm called to love like Jesus. And I thought, oh, okay, all right. And man, this guy is probably 6'6", and he big, and grabbed a hold of me, and I just kind of was like, well, all right, man, this is. I felt like there was something there. You know what I'm saying? I walked in, and God, I just they took me in, and all these people was coming up, giving me hugs, telling me how much they love me, and I thought, man, these people are weird here. You know, first of all, well, I don't even know you, and you love me. You know, and within about 10 minutes, I already started feeling loved and started seeing things happen, and it was that day I'll never forget. I started journaling, and within about the first 2 or 3 days, I was going to be there for 15 months, and God said 11 months, and I'm like, man, all right, whatever, you know, this is kind of where this is going, you know, I'm going to be here 15 months, and it was, so I just write it down in my spiral, and I start keeping a spiral of what God's doing, and you know, I'll never forget the first Friday night they had a big praise in where everybody comes in, and there's a pastor comes from outside. We have this. I mean, like every Friday night was like a revival, you know, and it just we had great time. See God move, see people, just lay it all out there. And I walked up there to the front, and I said, God, I'm done with everything I have ever done in my life. You got to take every wild hair out of me, because I do not have one more trip inside of me. I mean, I've put couches on top of houses because I thought the cops were after me, and I'd get up there with night vision goggles, and it was just the methamphetamines and all the stuff that I was doing was costing me to be so paranoid, and I was like, God, you have to wash me clean, because I can't walk out of here having anything worldly in me. And it's just, it was one of them deals. I was there 10 months and 28 days. My grandmother passed away, and they called me in the office, and they said, man, we need to talk to you. And I'm like, okay, you know, what are we doing here? And they said, well, you need to pack your stuff. You're going home. And I was like, hold on. Almost 11 months. And man, it just, there was little things that started happening to build my faith, and God showing me things, and my family was restored. My parents was coming around. My brothers and sisters were coming around. There was, I had pretty much, it's bad when your dad and your mom, when you get thrown in county jail and you call and, well, y'all come get me out. And they said, this time we're leaving you. And literally, I called every bond company I could call. Nobody wanted to. It was, God had to get me to a spot where I was, where some people's got to go a little bit further than others. Mm-hmm. There's a guy that told me, he said, you got to keep your head in the dark a little bit longer than others. When I finally pulled it out, it took me almost 33 years to get to that point, but it was, so it was, that's where I was at, and I started seeing God move, and I started seeing my family come back, and I started seeing things happen, and man, they called me in the office, and they said, man, we've heard about your boot shop, and we want you to go back. And I was like, all right. And God gave me a verse when I was in there, in Psalms 119, 105, and every boot has it in the bottom, in between the sole and the outsole. And he showed me when I was in Teen Challenge that I have one of the greatest ministries, because when you put on your boots every morning, you look down into a dark, deep hole, and there's a cross and a scripture in every boot. Wow. And then there's Psalms 119, 105, it's a lamp to your feet, a light to your pathway, is in between every insole and outsole. And so I went home and had the opportunity to go back and forth once a month to finish up Teen Challenge. And I graduated there in November of 2015, moved back to Lubbock with my parents, and I just started seeing God really move with my boot shop and making some big steps, and I had to give one dude his money back because he got so mad, and I was like, man, I had enough money to build one pair of boots when I got out, but the day that I got out, I had to call my parole officer and tell him that I was out, that I was going to start back building boots. And he said, man, I need you to come to Amarillo and see me. And I was like, oh, man, here we go. And I just knew that I had done some things prior to going to Teen Challenge that had got me caught up into some more stuff. And I was like, man, do I need to bring a driver? I mean, I've already put my parents through the ringer. Mm-hmm. And I was like, do I need to bring a driver? And he was like, no, I just need to talk to you. And it was one of them deals. And so I went up there, and he said, man, if we need you to pay this amount, and your charges have been dropped, your arrest record has been removed. And I go back to that day that I was sitting in the county jail, sitting there looking at federal charges, and he said, that federal judge says, God's got this. He says, I've never dropped a federal charge down to a felony charge. And I said, well, that's good. How are we going to get out of here? And it wasn't getting out, but it was the whole part of God had a process, and he had to take me through the fire, in that silver and gold, and get that
refine you.
Refine me, yes, ma'am. Refine me, and it started that day that I walked into Teen Challenge, and I really truly believe that when I went up there, we prayed 15 minutes. I don't know about y'all, but praying for 15 minutes is like, it's
tough.
Yeah, because I'm one of them short prayer guys, and I know and Hope, she's over there. She can't hear me. She's out there looking at me. Love you. And
it's hard for people with AD.
And because I get off on them squirrels.
That's right.
I'm having a hard. I want this microphone to walk around with me. It's one of them deals. I really truly believe it's like that first night that I walked in. It was a Friday night when I got there to Teen Challenge, and I had no clue. I thought them people was crazy. Still, I laid up there at that altar, and I had bawled my eyes out and said, God, I'm done. Like I'm exhausted. I can't do this no more. And it's just every little step I went through that program, I started seeing God move and move and move. And so that's where that's at. So and I go back to that day of where we was in the county jail, and he said, God's got this. And I look back at that day that they let me out of Teen Challenge, and after my grandmother's funeral, and God really did have it, Mm-hmm. But I had to go through certain steps to. I had to be purified to get what he truly wanted. So
now that God reached you, and fast forwarding to now, you were talking about your boot, making boots and everything, and how you use that to minister to people. And I think that's so powerful, because people think, oh, well, that's the preacher's job, or that's the Sunday school teacher's job. Like, they think that, God can't use them to reach people. And I think you can speak on that, saying that even if you're broken, or, even, no matter what you're doing in your life, no matter where God takes you, you can use that to reach people. So how would you say you're reaching people today?
Well, the church has... we're in a culture that sometimes when you say church, people run like heck.
Right.
When you can't always get somebody in these walls right here.
Exactly.
And church ain't about walls anyways.
Exactly.
And that's where a lot of people, a lot of religions fall short, is you got to get to church on Sunday morning. Yeah, it's great. That's where I get fed. That's where, I get filled up so I can go back out and do what I do in the week. I need to go to church about 4 days a week because of some of the people that we deal with and the drivers in
Right.
Lubbock, Texas. I need a little bit more Jesus because it is what it is. But it's a lot of these. I've had a lot of people come in, and I've had a lot of articles. People wanting to write articles and do television and shows and stuff. And I just tell them, if I can't share my story and I can't share Jesus, then you're wasting your time. And I've had several people come in, and I've had two guys come in. One guy, he said, I want a pair of boots, but I don't want the cross. And I said, well, I'm sorry.
Wow.
And he says, you mean you're going to turn down $1,000? And I said, yeah, I am.
Because it's about glorifying God. It's not about the money.
It's like this. Peter denied Christ so many times. And I denied Christ for, probably 33 years. And I knew who he was, but also, man, I lived a hellish life wanting heavenly rewards. You know what I'm saying? And it was it's one of them deals where I was I just, the day that I walked out of Teen Challenge, I said I'll never do it again. And I haven't, and I've stuck to my gun, and it's made people mad. And the one dude that it made really mad, he finally come back, and he said, all right, I'm ready for a pair of boots. And he said, I don't want to cross some scripture there. And he told me the two scriptures that he wanted in the boots. And I just said, yes, sir. And it's, I've seen people get saved. There was a guy that, he come in, he says, man, I can't afford I really can't afford a pair of boots. Why are you looking at my mohawk? I seen you looking at it. He said, I really can't afford a pair of boots. He says, but I'm here for something bigger. This dude shared with me that him and his wife had been trying to get pregnant for a long time. They kept having miscarriages. He said, God told me to go get a pair of boots. And it was pretty cool because the day he come in to get a pair of boots, his wife was, they did all those tests, and that was the most fertile that she was that night. But when he left, there was a lady that walked in my shop that seen him walking out and said, what was all that about? And I told him what was going on, or told her what was going on, and she wrote the check for his boots, and she said, now you send his money back because he can afford them. And so it's just, there's been so many, like I seen a drug addict, he took a big shot of heroin and I used to be in this Cactus Alley courtyards, and he was walking around, and I had a guy working for me at the time, and I seen it, and I walked out there, and he was looking at the scriptures, and then he started asking me about my deal. Right then and there, he gave his life to Christ. He says, I've never found a Christian that I wanted to be like. He said, because all of them wanted to judge me because I've always been a heroin addict. And he says, I wanted change, but he said, I heard about this Jesus, but I never found one that I wanted to be like. And so that really made me think, I got to minister daily, use words if you have to, or, love like nobody, or love like Jesus. And there was so many, it really got me to thinking that, we got to be Jesus 24/7. And because there's people that you'll never talk to, but your actions speak louder than words. And it really got me to thinking, and just things like that really hit home. You know what I'm saying? And that's what it's all about is, you can come up here and stand on that stage and preach, and you can shove Jesus down people's throat. But I know for me, and I can speak for Micah, actions are going to speak louder than words.
Absolutely.
If you're ranting and raving and throwing things and not living according to, I want to see it. I ain't got time to listen to the bumping of the gums.
Well, and we are essentially part of a culture that words only mean so much. It's mainly your actions, because I remember going to Amarillo one year, and there were some guys talking about you had just gotten out of jail, and everybody was mad about the boot deal.
Yeah.
And you were clearly making it right, but a guy walked by that I'm not going to say his name, but he was wearing a pair of your boots. And, I mean, seeing that guy take a chance on you kind of open that door. And, I mean, you're kind of the poster child now for you are never too messed up for Jesus to love and to save anyone.
That's right. It don't matter, Mike. It don't matter how far you go. You know, I got people that say, "Man, I got saved at 5, and I've walked that road." You know, and then I've got people that had to go as far as I did. You know what I'm saying? It don't matter where you're at. It's just what matters is if you can, like, it's all about that heart transplant. You know what I'm saying? It's about that. You know, some of us, it's kind of like I told a lady one day. I said, I'm just working on my testimony a little bit longer than you have.
Exactly.
And you know, it's that's the coolest part is, man, I didn't deserve all the chances that I got, and thank God that we serve a God of not only second chances but many chances. You know,
Right.
Some of us have to go a little bit further than others. You know.
And I kind of want to ask this because me and Keona both are dealing with students that are in a world that we've never seen before. And we just kind of would like to know, you know, what advice do you have for parents that, you know, they're seeing their kids struggle?
Man. And I'll tell you the hardest thing that as a recovering addict, as a guy that has struggled for most of his life, that finally got his head out, that finally, you know, it's one of them deals that I see a lot of people. I get to talk to a lot of parents, and I tell them, tough love is the hardest. Love, you got to love them, but you also got when they're sitting there milking. Don't be an enabler.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? People that if they're struggling, help them, love them. Man, Jesus loved the nastiest, the ugliest, and the messiest.
That's right.
And if he could love this outlaw and this dopehead and this alcoholic and this, and man, the list goes on and on. You know, I have 103 pages of a rap sheet, and there's not one conviction on there.
Wow.
And you know that if God can save me, he can save anybody else. But here's the biggest deal. If you got somebody that's struggling, don't keep praying. Or excuse me, don't stop praying. My mom will tell you right now, she said, man, I prayed and I prayed and I prayed. And when I got mad, I'd prayed some more. And when I wanted to kill him, I prayed some more. And when I wanted to disown him, I prayed some more. I never quit loving him, but I had to give him tough love.
Right.
And I couldn't keep enabling him because all I was, I get a lot of parents today, and they're like, well, we're going to pay his phone bill. We're going to give him money. You know what? And it got as bad as people would go give me groceries, and I'd take them back to United and get dope money. You know, I would exchange it back for money so I could go get my fix or go get a drink or something. You know, and it's like take them and feed them. But the world's work, it's like this. If you keep enabling them, I tell people like this. If you love them enough, you'll shut it off. Because if not, you're going to bury them.
Right.
And that's just, man, it's just, and I've seen God move in so many different ways. I've got to see people that was addicted, I mean, just start loving Jesus.
That's right.
And I mean, it's just, but it's like this. I mean, there's, you know, you can, it's one of them deals that it's real easy to get lost again.
Yeah.
You know, it's, I didn't get saved and run off and love Jesus, but still partaking some of the worldly things. I mean, we keep a close, tight rein on because I can't. There's a lot of things I can't do still to this day.
So how do you How do you go about withstanding stuff like that? And also, where has forgiveness shown up in your life through other people?
Man, I've done a lot of wrong things to a lot of wrong people, and it's like this. Joe and Joanna Hughes and my parents and a lot of them, I just milked it. And I mean, and once they see the true change in Brad, they all that has been washed away. And
Right.
and I mean, they love me like they loved me the day they met me, and they probably love me more now than what they did then, just because they've seen the change and the grasp and everything. But they kind of had to sit back and want to see it. They needed to see some action before they come running back.
Yeah.
And it's just man, it's like this. You may take 10 steps forward and take 8 steps back, but thank God for them 2 steps that you didn't take back. You know what I'm saying? It's an everyday occurring deal where you keep that forward motion, or you start going backwards. And thank God for my wife, Hope, because there really is hope in Brad now. But she, man, she's good about, if she sees something, she call me out on it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And helps me and prays for me and just truly, I mean, that's the best thing that's come along. You know what I'm saying? And now we got an awesome family. But it's just, I've seen a lot of forgiveness. But a lot of people was real gun shy when I first got out, because I loved Jesus so much, and they was like, "Oh, he's one of them ones that loves Jesus. That's on that Jesus high right now." And
just wait 30 days later.
Yeah, just wait. He's gonna screw up, and and I've been this September I'll be sober 8 years, and that's the longest that I've ever made it. But I'm gun shy. You know what I'm saying? I've really watched myself, because I knew in the back of my mind that, hey, I've never made it this long. I'm gonna make it this long, and I'm gonna keep going, because there's a lot of things that I don't partake in. I don't.
Right.
We don't go to the bars. We don't go dancing. We don't. There's.
We all have something that can set us off, and we all have some sort of core issue going on in our lives, and it sounds like you do things to protect yourself, and it's just like in other people's lives, you just got to figure out what that core issue is and what is actually setting you off.
And I think too, speaking to your question and your testimony, I think community is the biggest thing, because you said you got to Teen Challenge and, they were loving on you, and you said, you don't even know me, but they loved on you. So I think having those people who are going to love you and lead you to Jesus and hold you accountable, that's super important. So do you have any resources or anything you'd want to share like that?
Man, I'll be real honest with you. Teen Challenge is one of the best resources. I wasn't a big AANA person. That's just to each is their own. I'm one of them ones that here's my biggest resource is I have a group of men that I can call. Big Daddy Mike Blum, and I mean there's a group of Micah. There's a group of guys that when I get a little my thinking kind of gets a little cloudy, mm-hmm. that I'll pick up, and I'll call Mike and be like, dude, you need to pray for me. It's gotten a whole lot better. I don't call near as often, but I know where, like, the more I go, the better I am in my walk. And it's kind of like this. I can go to the throne before I can the phone, because I know how to use that weapon, mm-hmm. instead of having. I got just as close of connection as they do, mm-hmm. but sometimes it takes that group of men that know where I've come from and where I'm headed, that I can call early morning, late at night, and I can say, hey, this is where I'm at, and where I need prayer, and it's I have a good close group of men that I can say, hey man, I can shoot texts, I can make phone calls, but my biggest deal is I didn't need no 12-step program. Right. I needed a 1-step, and it was called Jesus.
Amen.
And there's a lot of people that need that 12-step. Man, I just needed to know that I was screwed up, and the world knew that I was screwed up, and I just needed to walk in and say, here, I had diarrhea of the mouth and just kind of threw up and said, here I am, Jesus. I need your help, and I ain't walking out here till we have change.
Amen.
And it's, and everybody's different. And, I mean, one person may need all that other nonsense, but I just needed Jesus. And I knew that Jesus could change my life, and it was the part of once I got a hold of what I tasted and seen, that he was good and he was real good, and I started seeing miracles, and it's and that's where that's at. So,
but Jesus has shown up in your life,
yes.
And Jesus has really blessed you through your boot and cap business. I mean, it's just I know some rough guys that got saved because of you, because of your ministry and how you didn't just say it. I mean, you showed it.
Yeah.
And when Jesus is actually in your life, I mean, you're so happy that he's there that you want to show why there's such a change.
And I look at it like this: is God did not design my destiny, but he also figured in on my stupidity, and I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah.
And man, it's just, I'll put it this way: God's really good, because we've seen so many. I couldn't even go into the bank and borrow $1 to get a piece of gum, and man, we just bought our first property, and God's just moved. When you truly surrender, and I mean not half-heartedly, I mean truly surrender.
That's right.
I mean, you're going to stumble and fall, Micah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like I tell people, I'm saved. If I could just get my mouth saved, we'd be real good. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's but that's where that's at. But when you truly give it all and give back what God ain't even asking for that, but give back every little paycheck. Mm-hmm. We got more money in our checking account than what we've ever had.
Right.
We haven't struggled. We haven't had problems. And God just keeps blessing us.
That's right.
And it's just, I encourage people, try it.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's where it's at.
Well, we better get to wrapping up, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, Brad, thank you so much for driving from Lubbock, Texas, and just thank you so much for joining me and Keona today.
Man, I'm glad.
So great to hear your story.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here. Wish Big Daddy could be here so we could make jokes about him. That's right. But maybe we could get Cody and Jason Taylor and
that's right, and
all have us a one big fun time in here.
Yeah.
And leave him out.
Yeah, I don't think this room is big enough for all of you.